everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram or on Facebook at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs. And with that being said, I have Lisa with us today. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, Lisa, tell us about you. Tell us your story. I'm just going to hand you the microphone. Take as long as you want. I want to know about little Lisa all the way up to the Lisa that we're talking about. You have your own show. You're very entrepreneurial minded. You have a lot of things going on, and I can't wait to dive in. So the microphone's yours. Take as long as you want.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm very excited for this conversation. Little Lisa had a ton of passions. I was an only child. I did a lot of reading. And my first love, what I thought I wanted to be when I grew up, was a air traffic controller. And so I sort of dedicated my life. I was very single-minded in that respect. I was 6 years old when I got on a plane, and I was afraid to fly. So the stewardesses at the time took me to see the cockpit, and the pilot told me to listen, that we were going to be, guided through our route. And I fell in love with that air traffic controller's voice. And that's kind of what I had as a vision for myself. I went to college because they weren't offering the air traffic controller's test. So I thought I'll just get my degree in the meantime. I started working for the Federal Aviation Administration in the Accident and Incident Reporting Division. And I worked there for about 6 or 7 years, waiting for them to offer the air traffic controller's test, because there was that whole issue politically with Reagan and the air traffic controller strike and so many things outside of my control. So I did test for it to know that I was able to think geometrically and understand the spatial relationship. So I would have passed the test. I was able to do that, but it never was offered while I was young enough to take the test. If you're not tested in becoming an air traffic controller by 28, at least at the time that I was doing this, you weren't going to be that. So I decided that I would do something more prolific with making money. If I wasn't going to have my very first love, I was going to make a lot of money and do a lot of fun things. I had gotten my pilot's license. That was pretty expensive. So in my head, I had the idea that I needed to start working for myself and start clicking away at making some money. So I got into real estate because it wasn't foreign to me. I grew up with my parents as landlords and everyone in my family owning at least one multifamily. So I got into income generating real estate at 30. And I've been doing that ever since. And I really threw myself into real estate because I truly loved it. But around 22, I met my husband, who was my then boyfriend, and he loved food. So he's the one who really introduced me to the enjoyment of food and the enjoyment of really good food. I grew up on takeout. My mother was in the workforce and she let me eat McDonald's as much as I wanted, which as a teenager is pretty great. But I was also a girl who grew up in the 80s. And there was a lot of you're not thin enough. I was on my first diet at 12. So I did have a really weird relationship with food up until the time I met my husband. I was doing a lot of calorie restriction and starving myself and eating one meal a day. So when people talk about fasting now, I think you're talking to a 23-hour-a-day faster for most of my life. Not interested. I'm interested in eating. So I start cooking for him because he sort of brings out that piece of me. And I determined that I really love the tactile piece of cooking. And I really love the fact that in my life, which is a lot of laundry that's never quite done or work that's never quite done or, the regular, boring, mundane obligations of adulthood, I have this thing where I can start it, stop it, enjoy it. I can enjoy, it really had this tactile, satisfactory piece. And then once I learned, because I'm a very picky eater, once I learned exactly how to cook the way I liked, it sort of took on a life of its own. And for a very short window of time, I thought I might own a cafe or a restaurant. And then I read Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential. And I really understood that if I cooked for a living, the love of it would probably stop. The business aspect of it would take over. And that really, even though I love food as much as I love food, and I love sharing food and I love recipes, I felt like that's really not what I need to do, is open up a cafe or buy an existing one. I actually looked into buying an existing one. And so I stuck with real estate. I helped restaurants, people go into restaurants. I do a lot of commercial on that side as well. And then I decided a few years ago that I was going to finally write a cookbook. I said as a young child, I love to read. I always imagined I would contribute in a space that I was a consummate consumer. And I'm like, you know what? I've consumed cookbooks. I've learned to cook off cookbooks. I'm going to make my own. So that's been my journey over the last few years of starting a publishing company and then publishing my own cookbook, which is due out shortly. It's in the printing process. And so it's called My Love Language Is Food. And I thought, I'm going to start a publishing company. I'm going to connect with people around food in this capacity. People were always asking me for my recipes anyways. I don't have to email them out. I know they're good recipes. I know everyone enjoys them. And then a couple of years ago, I was invited on a radio show in the middle of the political cycle. The radio show owner said, all we're doing is arguing on talk radio about politics. It's boring and it's dividing us. We need someone to bring us together. And he brought me on so we could talk about food. And then once he had me on, he said, you're pretty much able to talk about whatever you want. And then my girlfriend came on as a guest one day. And then he said to us, actually, the show is the two of you and your relationship. So we do talk about food an awful lot on that show. We're always like, what are you making for dinner? What are you making for dinner? We always want inspiration. And as wives, and mothers, we have this constant responsibility to keep our family fed on whatever mood everybody's in. So that is a struggle, I think, for the average person on a daily basis is what am I making for dinner? And I think that cookbook will have about 131 or 136 recipes, to help answer that quandary.
So let's go through this a little bit. I mean, what is it like you're having to create recipes, you're having to then artistically put them together, right, for photography. You're then having to write down what I'll call standard operating procedures on the commercial side, but for the normal person, that's a recipe and the instructions. And so talk to me a little bit about that, the process. How do you come up with chapters? Like, because to me, I think about structure first. That's the first place I go before I can build anything, even writing a book. So talk to me a little bit about strategy. Where'd you start? First recipe, why? And then, because you got to get started somewhere, right?
I thought the writer in me was writing, and it's like, no, this is a technical manual. So all that creativity that I thought I was throwing in, I wrote the book once and threw that book away. And are you allowed to swear in your show?
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay.
Of course.
So the name of the book was going to be called Fuck 'Em and Feed 'Em, A Guide to Keeping Your Man Happy and Well Fed. And it was going to be falling in love with my husband, falling in love with food, what that's looked like keeping a husband and family fed. It was supposed to be tongue in cheek. And then I started doing marketing and I'm like, I can't market this book. This is just going to be like a porn site popping up. And people are going to be very disappointed when they see that there's just, edamame noodle salads. And so like the creative part of me that wanted to do something fun and cheeky and, really mimic my personality had to go by the wayside. And then I wrote a second book and I was going to have someone publish it. And then COVID hit and then publishing costs went through the roof. So then I had to bring down the cookbook by almost 100 pages.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So then I rewrote the book the next time. And then I wrote a very traditional, the top is why you would like the recipe, what's exciting about it. The bottom is the recipe and so many recipe pictures. So I use the pictures of food the way people use porn, like to kind of get myself in the mood. So it was really important for me for the food photography to be stunning. And the first round of photographs were not that.
Yeah.
So I had to save up enough money and everyone's like, where's this book? What's taking you so long? Why is this so hard? But I will tell you that it is probably one of the harder things I've ever done.
Food photography is tough, big time.
It is. You wouldn't think it would be. And my husband kept saying, but you're a great photographer. Just take the pictures. I'm like, you have no idea. These pictures suck when I take them. They just suck.
It takes a special person. I swear there's a talent out there, a very specific human that can do food. They gain a skill for it.
Yeah.
Because I've been there. I've looked many times. I've had photographers many times, but I agree with you that it is the most important piece. That's what you're selling, the visual effect first in a cookbook.
Yeah, because I can't convince you just by writing to make it as much as I can convince you by a photo.
Yeah, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, you
Can't
can't
taste
touch it.
it.
Yeah.
You're not smelling it cooking, so your juices are flowing. You're taking a very stagnant thing. So it was challenging on the most fundamental levels and the most esoteric levels, because it was also, I wanted to be this very creative person, and I ended up having to go right back down to, you know, what everybody would want and expect, which was not necessarily the book I thought I was going to write.
Yeah, so, I mean, you have to start over at some point, you said. So you're starting from scratch. Are these recipes you've done with your family up until this point? Is this something you're like, "Okay, I know these work. I know this'll anchor." They're maybe passed down. Some of them are tweaked by you. I'm not exactly sure,
So I
but
had no cooking in my family. My
okay, go.
grandmother was an entrepreneur. She's where I get my love of money and business. Like, she always fostered that in me. My mother didn't have that, but I did. When I was little, my parents were called because I was selling my used toys and books at school in the first and second grade, and no one had lunch money, but I had money, and I was getting rid of my toys. I would draw artwork and be at the bus stop and be like, "You wanna give me a buck for this?" I would shovel driveways. Like, I was always, "How can I get a little bit of money?" And I think it's because my parents taught me, you're gonna need money in the world. You want that game, you should buy it yourself. Use your birthday money. They instilled it, but my grandmother also loved money and would talk to me about money, and was really probably the person I understood real estate from the most. You don't want to pay rent. You don't want to pay a mortgage. You want someone to be paying that for you. You're never going to get ahead if all of your money goes to this. And so she was really financially literate. And I think I got that from her. And I also, as much as this was a passion project, I want this project to make money. It cost a shit ton of money to put this book together. Way more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, the photography is that's crazy.
It's outright. They're worth every penny.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So you have to type it out now. You have all these recipes. You have to cook, right? So now you got 178 that you have to cook. You have to line up a photographer. You have to make sure your team's together and all that. Like, where do you do the photography in your house? Do you do it elsewhere? Are you spreading it around multiple places? I don't know. I don't have an answer. So I'm just like, because
Yeah.
in my head, I'm trying to break this down into all the manageable pieces. So let's start there. Let's talk about the manageable pieces. Like, like, how many days did this take? How long did you sort of take to get this done? Because it is not just sitting down and typing. It's not only typing, it's cooking, it's photography. It's all that, like we said. So it's not just the creative side. You're running a business just to build a book.
Yeah. And so I started because I work visually as well. I actually work 50-50 audibly as well as visually. But since I knew that this was a visual representation, I started by always like looking for what I liked and what I thought things looked good and what I thought looked enticing, and pull that together so that I could show people. So it started by building almost a fake book with like plastic sleeves. And I would find a recipe that I normally make, and I would find an equivalent type of picture that I was like, this reminds me of what this recipe tastes like. So, and I like the little bit of the close-up shots, but I do like it. I learned I liked different things than I thought I liked as well, because it was a learning process. The first photographer I hired, I did it in 2 rounds. I saw everything on thumbnail, so I thought it was perfect. And then as I'm printing them out and now kind of like putting the book together, I thought, I hate these pictures. And so one of my girlfriends came over and I said, I need your honest opinion. I need you to look at these pictures. And she's like, these suck. You can't use these. And I was like, I thought so. So I had originally called the person who actually did the pictures, but it was before COVID. It was $10,000 a day to be in the studio with him. That wasn't his pictures. That was his space cost. And that covered the food stylist, the food editor, people shopping, that covered a bunch of things. And then it was the cost of the food and then his cost to photograph it. I was like, well, I can't afford that. So then I went to this woman who was, $6,000 all in for everything, but I hated the pictures. So I went back to him. Now COVID, we're like through COVID. And I tell him my story and I show him some pictures. I'm like, this isn't the representation I want. I really come back to you, because what I would do is, like, who are food photographers in my area? I would pick up a magazine and be like, who is the food photographer for this? And I kept coming back to the same guy. All those years later, 3 years later, like, this is the guy I want. And so I talked to him on the phone and he's like, you know what? What can you give me? We'll do it at your house. He no longer has a studio because during COVID, his lease ended and then they were going to turn it into rentals or something. So he was out anyways. And I said, I will cook the food. He had the stylist and the editor. And he said, I'll give you, I think it was 2 or 3 days. And that's what we're taking. The price is however many you can get done of these. And I got 48 done. And I called my girlfriend who I do the radio show with. And I said to her, will you come and be my kitchen slave? And she's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. Clean up after me. I'm going to be a disaster. I'm cooking 48 recipes of food so that, I'm cooking everything. She's styling, he's photographing, he's video editing. And at the end of that 3rd day, I had all of my photos. And it was from like 8:00 in the morning till 6. I remember how much money I spent on the food because I'm making 48 recipes of food. It's a lot of money. I'm doing alcohol in there, right? And so the very first, I have cookies ready for them the second they walk through the door and they're set up. It's like, here's cookies, start doing that. And I said, oh, and whatever you want for lunch, let me know. We'll pull it aside and I'll give you stuff to take home. And they're like, we never eat the food. And I thought, I just spent thousands of dollars on this food and there's so much meat and everything else. So I said, we're eating the food. Don't do anything to it that we can't eat it. And then, then they give you the frowny face. Because now the second the food's done, you have 10 minutes for it is unphotographable, the purposes of a food photograph. And so it was a lot of fun, but it was crazy. And, the first cookies come out and the editor who's doing the food edit, can I have the cookies? I'm like, you want a glass of milk? He's like, absolutely. By the first day, we were eating lunch together. By the second day, the food stylist was a vegetarian and she was like calling her meals, because she was like, I want the whatever and I want the whatever. And, but then we were sitting at lunch eating them and my girlfriend took some food home. I gave some food away. But because don't forget, I photographed everything the first time, bought it and, try to give away 24 meals of food one time and then another 20 something. And it was also saving up the money to do it the second time as well. Same thing with the cover art. Every time I would go into the bookstore, because I want my book to be in a bookstore. I don't want it to look like, oh, this homemade book that this woman made. I want it to be, the entrepreneur in me wants it to be publishable and marketable, something I'm proud to market as well. And so I would go into the bookstore and I kept pulling covers and I would open it and it was this one woman. And so I reached out to her. And again, she wasn't in my budget. But after we talked and I told her the photograph story, she's like, what's your budget? I'll do it for your budget. And I tried not to make a million changes because I knew she was doing it, in a very, not for her budget. She was doing it probably for a third of what she charges Random House, maybe,
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going to drive her crazy back and forth with, I picked a couple and I was like, okay, tested a couple of them for what we were talking. It's a Mediterranean. If you have to say what style food it is, I would say it's Mediterranean based because it's a lot of fish, meat, chicken, and a ton of vegetables in there. But it doesn't have, like, I have Asian flavors. I have like a riff on a Thai dish. So it does have different flavors in there. I don't want people thinking it's Mediterranean cooking necessarily, but it's along that lifestyle. for heart health and stuff. And just that's the way I eat when I try to be healthy. So it was probably the most difficult thing I did, and time-wise, and then having everyone's expectations that I was taking too long doing it was also a thing, because everybody's like, "When is this cookbook gonna be done? How long could you possibly be working on this book?" Like, no one knows the costs that go into it. No one knows that I wrote it twice. No one knows these other things, and also, it's done when it's done. There was a little element. I mean, but even my accountant was like, "Oh, we're not taking any of these write-offs this year. When's your book coming out?" When you're like, "No pressure, no pressure."
Yeah, no, I know. I know, but I think rewriting, I think looking at things from different angles, I think creatively, I think is very important. I mean, I just went through this. I'm involved in some TV and in movies, and we just rewrote. We've been rewriting one script for about 3 years, and it's finally at a place where it's pretty phenomenal. But it just kept steady work. It kept looking at it differently. It kept, um, what are we going to run into? What problems is the audience going to see with this? No different than you went through, but in the end, it's pretty phenomenal. But no different than your time. But it just took work, and it takes looking at it sometimes tactically as well as creatively. Um, in the world that we live in, because there are so many different inputs. It's not just creating something and the world's going to be like, "Oh, you created greatness. Here it is. Thank you." No, there's the marketing, there's the eyeballs, there's where it's located. What is their first experience going to be on the page? What are they going to feel when they cook the first couple of recipes? There's a lot of things in there now: marketing, advertising, distribution, digital royalties. These things are all not just writing a book
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
So,
And the other thing that I thought was really interesting was I had called the cover artist because I needed to ask to change something on the spine and the back. And so I said, "I am so sorry to ask you to do this." And she's like, "No." She goes, "I was glad to know you're still working on the project because, time has passed." And I said, "I'm embarrassed, actually." And she goes, "Are you kidding me?" She goes, "Are you the only one doing this?" She goes, "I work with Random House and this one and this one. They have like 11 people are touching the book that you're touching all by yourself." And I can't tell you how many of those have been postponed, especially since COVID. So she's like, "I wouldn't." So it was good to hear from people in the industry, because I'm not in this industry. I'm not in the publishing industry, you know? Well, now I am, but,
yeah.
and, when I do the book and then it's like, "Oh, I've got to go work on the book." It was like, I thought the book was done. I'm like, now I have to market it. Now I have to get it up on Amazon. Now, that it's not even remotely done. Like, it's almost just started.
Hey, I feels like it's the same building something, like you build a restaurant or you build food facility. Like, you once it's done being built, that's now you got to pay the bills.
Yes.
Like, okay, now I just spent all the money. Now I got to go figure out how to make this thing actually make money, because like that's the whole other thing. I don't know books very well, but I've got to imagine now the pressure's on to sell the book. Now you've gone from pressure of making the book, writing it, photography, all that, to now having to push it out there. So what does that look like? How do you're on podcasts like this one, you're talking to people, you're pushing it on your own show, I assume, but you're having to travel, maybe you're having to go to stores. Like, how do you, I mean, I know what it's like to release a food product and sit in Costco and sling your food, or have the employees do it for you. So how does it work in this space for you, as because you're not using a Random House, you are doing this on your own and a more entrepreneurial effort, which obviously means more upside for you in the long run, but it's also a larger hill to climb, maybe, or a steeper hill. Maybe it's the same hill. So let's talk about that a little bit, because you're
Right.
there,
So,
you get it, you've got the packaging. Now,
yeah,
what
and
do
the
you do with
product.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the product. So, because I've been talking about this book forever, and I volunteered and did a lot of writing for Greet Magazine, which is a local community magazine. So I have local businesses. I was able to put some articles in there. They'd say, "Hey, this month, can you give us a recipe? And we'll advertise your book at the bottom of it." So I was able to start putting the word out there so people know it's coming. And then a lot of local businesses, especially with the radio, we give them a lot of free press, come in, and we've talked to authors, so I'm trying to learn the process of what they're all going through as well.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of local businesses who will put it in their stores and their locations. I'm working with trying to so the printing company that I work with, they also turn around and help you produce it to like Target, like those places. And that's part of it too, is you have to make it so that they get a 52% discount off the cover price so they can sell it at 30% off in their stores.
Yeah.
So like there's all this stuff that I'm learning, and I'm still learning that, but the radio show will be a big piece. I have a number of collaborations that I have going on. Like I have a woman who does glass artwork, making charcuterie boards and bowls and vases and beautiful things. So if people want to give it as a Christmas gift, they have something to give it to, with. So it's not just a cookbook. Because I like cookbooks for presents. But I imagine there's some wife at home like, you got me a cookbook? You got me a
Yeah.
chore? You got me a chore? You
Yeah.
got like this beautiful individually made glass charcuterie board. Yeah, and a cookbook. Like the gift is something else. So I've been working on that. So I'm doing collaborations. But I imagine that for the next year, every single week is going to be trying to sell this cookbook in every single way that I can. Like going to libraries. I have library events. There's another woman who's local who wrote a couple of cookbooks. We're going to team up at the library and have some live events. We'll do like a cooking thing. They have a concert series. We'll make all the snacks for behind the scenes, sell our cookbook there. Like we have a lot of almost like farmer market type local community things. I've reached out to television channels, local television channels, local newspapers, and I want all of that to start kicking in. And I'm going to do that hard for the next year and see where I am. And on top of this all, you say you don't know much about the publishing industry. I've been hearing for the last 15 years that publishing's dead.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that.
No, I don't either.
And it's just looking different. So if I sell 100,000 ebooks, am I going to care? No. And I get to sell those significantly cheaper than I get to sell the hardbound book, because printing the hardbound book costs so much money. Right? So like I'm really close with the animal shelters in our area. We always have them on the radio show. We did a live event at one of their local events where they brought up, there were no kill shelters. So they brought up from the South 16 puppies from this kill shelter. And we did this event to like push puppies, like take home a puppy today. Right. And so I said, I'm going to do something where if everyone buys the book that weekend, 50% of my proceeds will go towards the animal shelter, and if they want to do it on ebook or they want to do it, however we do it. So I'm looking at a number of ways to cross promote it that way as well.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know any other way, no matter how much success in any business I've had or sometimes lack of success, when you start something new, and if you're going to do it on your own, you're going to take ownership of it, and you want to benefit from it and build a legacy product, meaning also that the money doesn't only benefit you, but hopefully benefits your family in the long run. In order to do that, you have to control it. And in order to control it, you have to take the entrepreneurial route. It's just a thing of people can call it whatever they want. Oh, why just have someone who knows what they're doing do it? Well, from my perspective as an entrepreneur and constantly being entrepreneurial, I have to trust that I know what everything is going on, when in time I may have to outsource it. But if I don't learn it by going through the process, no matter what it is, how low I think it is, how humbled I have to be in the process, I have to do it for the sheer reason that if it is ever legacy, it is ever something that needs to go on beyond me, for humanity, for my family, for whatever, I have to make sure that the people I bring in to pass it on know what they're doing. And if I don't experience it for myself, all I'm left with is trust and assumptions and other people's opinions. Okay. So for me, you don't need to know it all along the way, but you need to be able to build it along the way in a way that you are, number one, gaining the information. Two, when you're bringing on people, you can guide them strategically in it, I think, as a thing. And then three, are these individuals who they say they are, and have they actually been able to do what they say they're going to do? Going to do, because guess what? I have. Maybe I didn't do it to the volume that they did, or as many books and whatever in this case, but I have been through it. And in some cases, one is the same as 10. You're learning the same thing, but in learning it on your own, I guarantee the lessons are more effective because it's your money. For anyone out there who's doing it, you're investing in yourself, and it's not like you're getting a degree at the end or there's some benefit. If it fails, it's just it fails. Life goes on. You don't get to go like, hey, guess what, guys, I failed. But it was this really great lesson. We should celebrate that. No one celebrates it with you. That's not how it works. You have to learn the lessons on your own. So in this case, for me, just to take it full circle for the audience, is if we don't do it ourselves and we don't take it on, it doesn't mean we have to do it forever. Okay. We have to pass it on. We need to learn it enough to pass it on to two people, um, educate for the sake of educating others prospectively. And in that, we can become a business, or we can write a book, or we can become a professional athlete. But what we, from the perspective of I'm doing it for a future legacy, and I'm also learning something along the way that doesn't only benefit the business, or in this case, a book, but it also benefits the people around me, where I'm learning for the sake of teaching others, not only for the book, but potentially for whatever they learn. That's an asset. That's how businesses are built. That's how legacy businesses are built. Um,
So
so
I think you bring up a couple of really good
yeah.
points, because one of the things that I've learned in connecting with people, because you're say, I'm going to write a book, and then you find other people who write a book, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you learn that the woman who has her cookbooks published by a traditional publisher, they sought her out. She worked as an editor at the Globe. Like, she had writing chops. She had a cooking blog. This was back in early 2000s when blogs were just taking off. She was sought out by a publisher. And she was telling me when they showed her the cover, she cried, and she's like, "You can't put that cover on my book." And she was talking about the loss of autonomy as people are doing things, because you give someone something and they massage it into something marketable,
Yeah.
something to sell, right? But you, as the writer, that's my baby. What are you doing redlining this? But one of the
Yeah.
things that I thought was so interesting was, I always think the best contributors, or the best way entrepreneurs do things, they're solving a problem, right? That's the whole point almost of entrepreneurship, is you're solving a problem. And what's the problem? Another cookbook. Do we need another cookbook? Well, cookbooks, when I did my research, every year, 6% increase, while all of these other industries or other books maybe not pulling the same weight. Well, cookbooks are okay. Everyone will spend X amount. Everybody, not everybody, but people will spend X amount. People who have one cookbook have 300. Like,
Yeah.
that demographic of people. They make decent presents. They can make hostess gifts. Like, you can do a lot with them. Also, because I wanted to be a writer for so long, and I thought, oh, I'm going to do this when I grow up, I read about the publishing industry. I read, and then I interviewed people who were telling me, you're lucky if you're going to sell 5,000 books. We won't put you on book tour. Like, all of these things. And I thought, well, to give myself the best chance, I could try to spend this time getting an agent who's going to help me get in front of a publisher. But then it's in their hands, and then it's done when it's done. And if they say, well, 3 didn't sell today, but the publishers always expect the authors to sell, especially in the last 15 years. And I also knew I'm not a chef. I'm not on the Food Network. All of those Random House and all of these publishing companies that are doing cookbooks like that want already marketable. I want you to have 300,000 followers on social, because they're selling a book. And people kind of trash talk publishers, but they actually take a chance on the average person. And thank God for the Stephen Kings, and thank God for Oprah, who's pushing books in her book club, that they can make market like money here so they can take chances on books that would have never seen the light of day over here. That will only sell 300 copies or 3,000 copies. So in real estate, I help businesses, and you learn all about different businesses when you help eyeglass store go into a location on Main Street. You learn what it is about that store, what they need. They need traffic, they need customers, they need inventory. And so business is business. So some of the stuff I learned in another business, I just said, okay, how can I fit my existing skill set into this business? And then what do I need to learn to fill in all the gaps?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That strategy. Talk to me about, well, let's get into something fun first, and then I'll get into that. Let's talk about your favorite recipes from the book, or the things that you've enjoyed the most, or maybe that have shocked you about yourself in the recipes. Let's talk about the recipes, the book itself, the enjoyment there, the things that you enjoy the most.
Okay, so I started out probably cooking very, very heavy food because I like the comforting aspect. Like I have a really great eggplant parm because I put ricotta cheese in my eggplant. It's not just mozzarella cheese in there or provolone cheese in there. And it's almost like a lasagna eggplant. But it's when I was putting that in the book, I thought people are going to pass by this recipe because it seems like it takes too long. It's dirtying too many dishes, right? It's going to take me an hour. I'm frying. People aren't going to do that. Right. So then I kind of backdoored into how can I make something that tastes as good as that, but that is 90% less work. So that's probably, so now I have eggplant roll-ups
Yeah.
that aren't breaded. So they became like healthier and lighter, but very similar taste and way easier to make in your house. You can make way more of them way quicker. Same thing with meatballs. Oh, I got to roll meatballs, fry them up in a pan, throw them in the sauce. Well, now I do baked meatballs. I just bake them in the oven to get them brown enough because my husband has to have them browned in some capacity.
Yeah.
If I have to stand there and fry up 80 meatballs, I'm not making them. And so it sort of was like, how do I make this easier? Because I know when I tell you that it's worth the effort I'm making it, if you're not someone who loves to cook, you're going to bypass that recipe
Yeah.
because it's too hard for you. So that was
Absolutely.
probably the thing I'm the most proud of in it, oddly enough, is
I like it.
it made, in testing the recipes and doing that, it actually made my cooking life easier. Because I love cooking. I'll spend 3 hours in the kitchen making something. As long as I have the time, I just pick a day I have 3 hours to do it. It might be Friday night for a Saturday party. I have a lot of cook ahead meals for parties because I love throwing a party. I love people over my house. I love feeding them. But my husband had a deal. You can't be just stuck in the kitchen with your ass out of the oven. We need you participating. We'll have the party, but let's either cater it so that you can participate or do it in a way so that you're with us at the party. You're not staff, just doing that. So that was like something that I have really good recipes for that. And I feel like I can encourage people because I think food is communal. It's something that we do to take care of ourselves. Like it's the thing that makes me healthy and happy. I can't outsource that. I can't expect a restaurant to make healthy food. They're in it to turn a profit, to make delicious food that makes me want to come out to it. But the restaurant's job is not to make me healthy dishes every day. I don't want them to be completely unhealthy necessarily. Like I want them to use good quality food. I don't want them to use crappy ingredients like a McDonald's, for example. But I go to this falafel place and he's back there making falafels and he's deep frying them and giving them to you. I'm happy, but I don't expect him to make healthy falafels for me. That's a job for me at home.
No, I agree. Let's talk about what are you enjoying the most about this journey with the book right now? The things that you're like, this is something I want to make sure I anchor, maybe remember, because they come and go, memories for sure. So let's talk about the things that you're enjoying the most right now, because you are happy. I see this. There's purpose here for you for sure. So tell me what you're enjoying the most.
What now I'm enjoying the most is getting it into people's hands. Like that is going to be the next fun piece for me because I believe foods to be shared. Someone when they found out I was writing a cookbook, they said, I have the best tomato soup recipe. And, I co-opted it from someone. So if you want to co-opt it from me. And I was like, what does co-op mean? And he's like, well, you're kind of like borrowing it. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
food's not that way. No, food is meant to be shared. It's the oldest thing we've ever done is break bread with somebody.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally a human experience to share food with somebody. That's the part I'm really excited about. If
Yeah. All the way from nourishment, all the to family, to warmth, to
connection,
roof over your head. Yep.
connection. And to me, it's about connecting with people about this. And I remember when I was in Barnes and Noble and I showed her the cover of the book. And she said, don't show me dark. I like light, bright colors. They make better displays. That one. Like I went to the bookseller and said, which one do you like? When I couldn't choose between two. And I had them on the radio. So I had already had a relationship. She didn't see me as like this crazy woman walking into the store.
Yeah.
You know?
Uh-huh.
And so, that was helpful. But she said to me, oh, I would buy your book, but I just don't cook. And I said, you don't like to cook? And she goes, I hate the supermarket. I said, so do I.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all parts of chores that we don't like. I totally get that. In every one of my sections, I just wrote a love letter that had a little bit to do with food, but it mostly has to do with about people, and it's in the connection with the food to the people. For me, but I do think it's really important to sustain yourself from it. So it's make sure you make the food you like the best, so you can
Yeah.
satisfy yourself.
Yeah, it's an energy transition. Like we've got to be like it is fueling us. There is energy from food to ourselves. And so I agree we have to one enjoy it, because what we're eating, if we're not enjoying it, it's not giving us good energy, period, even if it's good food. Okay. So we have to find a way to enjoy it, find people to enjoy it with. And the other part is that from a nutrition or from a health or from a cooking at home standpoint or a simplicity standpoint, there's so many options out there now. There's so many people out there that are doing things. And I find that initially, if someone can find a way to just keep it organized where it doesn't rule their life, where people are always like, the
Mhm.
question that you just asked, what's for dinner, becomes the family motto. And I think that becomes part of the reason some people don't enjoy it. The disconnect there is that it becomes a responsibility versus something that's done for the benefit of the legacy of the family. And I don't know how to anchor that, but to what you just said, I think that if we were all to be honest, people enjoy the grocery store sometimes, but who really joy, enjoys the having to deal with it or throw away food, or maybe I shouldn't have bought this, or not having things organized. Sometimes we just buy stuff for the sake of buying it. Um, but for the most part, I will say this. I enjoy going to the grocery store if I'm cooking for a group of people or for my family. But if it's for me, or I'm on the road and I'm cooking at a hotel or something and I'm trying to eat healthy, there's not the same enjoyment, because I'm not giving it as a gift for some reason, even though it's for me, for my health, for my benefit, and my health and staying alive does benefit my family, I think. And and um
Definitely.
yeah.
You can say
So
definitely on that.
definitely. So the that's where, food is such an important thing. And being in the food industry, from all the way from hospitals to healthcare to food trucks, and see the impact on different levels the food has, not only health but energy, people coming together, the love someone has for something when you get them something they absolutely enjoy, or you take something that's difficult like the egg plant roll-ups, and you make it something that's palatable, where they can get something they maybe enjoy out at a restaurant or whatever, and now it's healthier and easier to do at home. And guess what? Maybe my kids like it also, so I'm starting to improve their nutrition or energy transfer, for lack of a better term, and trying to get that point across.
Yeah, and we have the I work with some people who run a dyslexia center, and so we had talked about taking some of the recipes and then making them kid friendly. Like there's a lot of stuff that's just stirring. that doesn't require knife skills. Like I have a chia seed pudding that you put different fruits in. And, I don't like chia seeds, just chia seeds. I need them to soak because I can't stand that texture. I'm a texture person and taste person simultaneously. Even if something tastes okay, if the texture is just odd enough, I'm weird.
Yeah, that's me too.
Mhm.
Lima beans and peas are two very particulars for me.
Yes. Yeah. So mushrooms are very particular for me. I won't eat a mushroom out unless it's at a Japanese restaurant. Japanese people know what to do with mushrooms. Other than that, I can't trust you. You might make it like a sponge, just soaking it around in oil. I don't know what you're doing with it. You might be using
I
one from
know.
a can, and then I'm freaked out. So I, but one of the things was to the children of we think of, or we can think of cooking as like another chore, right? And the reason why I talk about hating the supermarket, the experience there is no longer fun. You want me to wring myself out, but you don't give me any belt space. I'm holding my purse. I'm wringing, bagging, putting it back in the thing. The computer sees my quick hand movement, thinks I'm robbing it.
I
And
know.
cheers come. I'm like, and you're charging me $7 for raspberry. I'm not having fun. I joke that I should be a speaker at a grocer's convention. Don't honestly, fucking guys, stop investing in AI. Stop investing in robots. It's human beings. Make the experience better. We're happy to go there. We'll impulse shop and spend way more money than buying our milk online and having someone deliver it to our car. Don't be stupid as entrepreneurs, as businesses. What are you doing taking us out of the store? What are you making us rush out of the store? Why are you aggravating us there?
I
Stop
know.
the butcher tell us he can't cut meat. You're a butcher. You're back there with your claw. Cut my steak.
I know.
Cut this into smaller cubes so I don't have to do it. And I've shopped at stores. And I mean, I've shopped my whole entire life at grocery stores. You give a big chuck to the butcher and say, "Can you cut this into 2 inches pieces so when I get home I can just fry it up and throw it in a stew?" Like, make our lives easier. We will throw money at you. Stop pissed we showed up, making me wring myself out. Just stop it. Stop. Like, it could be so much more of like a boutique enjoyable experience. And Whole Foods was that before Amazon bought it.
100%. 100%. I've been thinking about this a long time interestingly, we're talking about it's probably been going on in my head for about 12 years, honestly 15 years, but really seriously over the last 6 years about how awful the grocery store experience is. I don't even care if you want fine, you're having a delivery, you want delivery out of your grocery store, you want DoorDash drivers and Instacart people running around your grocery store, fine, great. But fine. So this is the part that seriously, and it's crazy to me in restaurants too. You have a group of humans that are getting paid to run around your food for you in your stores, and you do nothing to market them or capture them or help them improve the experience to the customers. It's a really weird thing. McDonald's probably has the best system just because you really have to mess up that food experience in the delivery. Okay. But they are to go experience anyway. So it fits them. Okay. But in the grocery store, we're taking something that was meant for fast food and food delivery, originated by Chinese food, just so in New York City, just so we're clear on where food delivery came from in New York City in general. And then um, we're taking it and we're applying it to the grocery store experience where it's now like we're running into a warehouse and we're grabbing things, most of which you can't find it because the problem with the grocery store is it's set up to market to the people that are going there for the most part. So when someone's just running in there trying to grab orders, even if you give them shelves and identification, it's not that they're not getting an experience to trying to cook in and cook out.
Mhm.
So now you're meshing in the person trying to make money off of shopping with the people trying to enjoy shopping. And to me, that's where the energy there, the experience there, the meshing of the people that are being impatient because they need to get out of there because it's a job, truly is a job. And then you meshing with people that are trying to enjoy it and cook it and go home and be happy with their family, but yet now they just had food and they're upset and the carts didn't work, and it takes 3 times as long to self-checkout as it used to check out with a person who knew every code, who knew every button, who told you to have a good day, that had a smile on their face, that could improve your day if you had a rough
Mhm.
day at work on your way home. And we've eliminated that to the experience. So we've literally meshed it together. Okay, you want to do self checkout for the delivery drivers? I can. Okay, great, whatever. Maybe you only allow delivery drivers certain times a day. I don't know. I don't think that's a good solution. But it's funny to me that if you're going to do delivery drivers, why not let them shop 24/7 in a store that has that's paying rent 24/7, so they can actually pick the orders at night, the drivers who are working at night, and do people's deliveries on their doorstep in the morning or whatever, versus doing it when people are in the store. I have a lot of different thoughts, and maybe the stores already do this, but I will say this. As someone that's been in food and marketed food and been in there, while the experience is supposed to be getting better and we're supposed to be getting healthier food in the grocery stores, no one understands it. No one understands what's going on in the grocery store because you can't get someone to help you. Even when you do, they don't know where things are in the grocery store anymore. And I mean, to be honest, it's like no one cares or understands the value of being a grocery store employee in today's proposition, or even a fast food employee. The value of it is more you are providing nutrition, substance, experience, a moment to make someone's day better, all these things, yet we've now turned it into a and it's such a business that we don't have the personal touch anymore. I don't have a loyalty to a grocery store at all. I'm not waiting where I used to wait to go to a specific Whole Foods on my way home when I lived in Arlington, Virginia, that it was so good that I had that experience. And then I had a Harris Teeter in my life that was that way also. But that's not the experiences anymore. I don't even know the people at the grocery store anymore. I rarely have the same checkout person, if ever.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will tell you, I had a little grocer. I moved into this town and I found this little grocery store. The square footage, it probably fits not even inside. It could fit definitely inside a produce section of any Market Basket, Hannaford. Like that's how small it is. It had every brand I wanted. It had Boar's Head. It had the beer my husband liked or that we used for beef carbonara. It was perfect branded. It had everything you needed. It's surprisingly. And they that butcher, I would call him and say, "Hey, I'm gonna be there around 2. Can you cut up some blade steak for me? I need 3.5 pounds." And I would show up, he would smile, come from behind the counter, hand me, "What are you making with this?" You know? And then you go through your shopping. I was in and out of there in 15 minutes. It was such an enjoyable experience. And then they closed in COVID. And now I'm back thrust into the supermarket. Literally, my sister-in-law texted me, "Oh my god, there was almost an arrest in the parking lot at the supermarket today because we're so agitated."
yeah.
You know, we're agitated for a number of reasons, but that experience is not making us any better. I was recently at Whole Foods, and I'm wringing myself out, and I crunch with my because I'm again, there's no belt. I'm trying to do a whole shopping ring out where I have the register, one tiny bit of counter space, one place for my bag,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm doing this and I grab the eggs and I stick my thumb through one of the eggs and I'm dripping egg down my arm. And I said to the woman who's watching us, she was filing her nails, watching the 4 register. I shit you not. And then I go, "Oh my God, could you get me some eggs?" Like I stuck my finger there. She goes, "No." She goes, "You can go back and get eggs." Just like that. And I was like, "Don't get arrested. You're in your own hometown. Don't get arrested. You're gonna be on the
I
radio. Don't get arrested. Don't get,"
no, no.
because I wanted to take all the eggs.
I've got 11 more eggs here.
I've got 11 more eggs to throw on this floor, and you will be working at some point. And then in my head, I said, "Oh, she probably can't leave her station." Like, I'm even giving her the benefit of the doubt one more time. And I'm like, "Can you get me a manager?" She goes, "No." And I go, "Get me a fucking manager." Like, loud in the supermarket. And I think to myself, "Okay, I can't go here now for like 2 months." Like, I have to like purge this from my system. And that's not the experience you want when you go anywhere.
No, it's a weird thing where there's just not doing the right thing, that there has to be an escalation or a rising of the human trying to get what they're I'm not gonna say I don't wanna say entitled to, but I do wanna say that we're shopping there for an experience that's not being delivered. And I also wanna say this from a grocery store industry perspective. The best thing that all spot stores had going for them was no matter what store you went through, your checkout experience was generally the same. You got in the line, you could pick out candy or last minute soda
Mhm.
as you were going out. If you forgot something, okay, you could maybe ask someone to run and get it for you or a bag person. There was a lot of experience there, that's not there, okay? But now every supermarket or every place you go, like, let's say I'm traveling, okay, and this was an advantage. This is why the drive-through and fast food is still an advantage, okay? Because it's still the same even with an app. You still order, you still go through the drive-through, the steps are still the same. But what we've done is you go into a Target, you go into a Harris Teeter, you go into a Whole Foods, none of the checkout when you use the automated systems are the same. Sometimes they require you to scan your thing first. Sometimes they require it next. Sometimes, oh, I scanned all my items, but I forgot. And I went to go do my credit card, but I forgot to scan my telephone number. Now I have to go back in because it was in a different order. Because when the human is interacting in the checkout experience, your experience is generally the same. Even if the order is going out of order, the human is conducting the experience like a train conductor. But what's happened is we go in there, and that's part of the frustration is now I don't know what I'm doing. I'm having to type in the number. The avocado at Target is not necessarily the same number in inventory universally. It's you want it to be, but it's not always that you would type in somewhere else. Or you have 5 digits for organics and four for regular. So I'll call it regular for lack of a better term. So you're now putting that all on the consumer to have that knowledge. The consumer does not want to have to be educated at the grocery store on things that are not related to food,
And
especially
pay the price
technology.
that we're paying.
Exactly. Which is if it's getting automated, it should lower the price. We shouldn't have to now pay for bags and a bag that hold on, it has your brand on it and you're marketing it and we're paying for it. Okay. I understand the whole we're trying to get people to be less wasteful, but your brand's on the bag. Let's be honest. You take that on.
Yeah. And what do you care if I take 100 of them and bring my friends food in them? Now they have a Hannaford bag. Like, what's wrong with
Exactly.
you?
Exactly.
It just
Exactly.
seems like and then when I was looking up recently, like, what are do you want they wanna grow their business because I feel like you guys don't even wanna grow your business anymore. It says, "No,
Yeah.
of course we are. We're gonna be investing in automated tagging." And it's like, don't spend you're being sold I think everyone is being sold this idea that technology will save us. More technology will save us because this
Mhm.
technology sucks or doesn't work as advertised, or we've got the new thing coming out. We have survived all of this time. Food is food. It doesn't need to be automated. It doesn't need to have an AI version of it. That's the beauty of it. And I
Yeah.
wish I could grow food. At some point, I'm going to try to do that, but I live with a lot of animals and, I don't want to have to shoot any of them because they're eating all my lettuce, those bunnies. But, that is going to be something I try to do at some point. I grow my own herbs
Yeah.
because that's kind of easy.
Lift up, yeah, aquaponics, gardening. Have you ever seen
Mhm.
those? Those are we have those in our house and the tower gardens.
Oh,
Keeps them away from the animals. Now that it's lifted and you can and there's AI there that helps you. I will tell you that I'm not completely against someone that's helping us grow things properly and
mhm.
educating us along the way. Now you don't need it as much. But, the Guardian has it, I'll plug it, even though they don't ask me to for the show, but I do think both the Tower Garden and the Guardian, which is I say Guardian because it's Gardyn. I'm sure they say Garden, but I'm just calling it Guardian just to emphasize the Y.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, they're really lettuce, spices, herbs, layering, berries. We've seen peppers and stuff. We've taken some time, tomatoes. But I will say this, the main reason it started is because of the grocery store experience, because of the lack of variety anymore, in the produce section, even in a normal grocery store. People were like, "Oh, it's the same." Well, it up until about 20 years ago, it wasn't normal to have peppers all year round, just so everyone knows, or onions, or Vidalia onions.
Mhm.
It wasn't normal. We shopped cyclically and we sourced more locally with our farming. Why we don't do that anymore, I don't know. And grocery stores sought variety seasonally to give a better experience to their customers. We see that with promotions or the candy aisle at Halloween, but we don't see it with offering the things that are actually good for the humans. And I'm going to anchor this for everyone: that locally sourcing of the products, the health that's involved, the education because of doing that for the humans and the family, it's hugely important. The more we step away from it, I'm not saying we shouldn't source things for what from wherever or whatever. That's not what I'm saying, because I do understand the volume problem being in healthcare. That even when doing Kaiser Permanente and we wanted to do organic eggs in early 2000s, there wasn't enough organic eggs being laid in the world to do all the Kaiser
Mhm.
Permanente hospitals. Okay, just so everyone's aware of what we're really talking about here. So there is a volume problem. There has to be the commitment to the volume that's necessary to do it. So that's why it's outsourced. There is the profitability or the price, business model also. But what I will say is this: on average, people used to spend more on their grocery bill, just so everyone knows, compared to the other things, the toys, the phones, the whatever we buy now, because it was such an important piece of the home. The reason we spend less now is because the experience has become so transactional. I go to the store, I get tomatoes, cucumbers, the same salad, the same meat, the same thing. I generally cook the same things for my family over again. Is consistency important in family and discipline? Yes, 100% agree. However, in the world that we live in the reality of being a human being, diversity in our diet is important, and constantly introducing different minerals and spices beyond vitamins and minerals we take orally through actually food in the way that it was meant to be processed by our bodies is hugely important. So that's part of it as well. I think innately we know that even though we're getting this experience at the grocery store, we're lacking the human connection, but we're also lacking the true connection with the food. And that's why I like cookbooks, the growing the food in your homes, the being more local, and I hate to say this, but bartering with our neighbors. Got eggs, you've got lettuce, you want to trade here or gift. And a society that looks more like that again is probably a direction. And I'm going to anchor it for this reason: is traveling the world the way I've done and being in food. One thing I will say, interestingly, is the older the culture, the smaller the grocery store, and the more often the person stops there during the day, not during the week. I didn't say during the week, during the day, sometimes twice a day,
Mhm.
definitely once a day on their way home. Everything's bought fresh for dinner tonight, breakfast tomorrow, lunch for my family. And then I do reset it again today on my way home. It becomes part of their happy experience. The grocery stores are smaller, so maybe I shop at this one for my meals this day, and then I go over here to the Asian market for my meals and stuff for the next day. And maybe my refrigerators are smaller. We can have that argument, and that's the reason why. But I would also say that the food's fresher. There's less depreciation of nutrition and value in the food when it's fresher, and therefore there's the experience. So I would say here, just to anchor what we talked about, not that I wanted to get on a tangent, but I do think that cooking at home is important. But I do think when we fall in love with it again, when we understand that if we do it more often or we connect ourselves to being the one to do the grocery shopping, I'm not saying everyone can do it. There's a reason to have deliveries for some people or some schedules, don't get me wrong, or working two jobs. I understand. But I do also understand that food is the connection that brings us together as a family. And one of the reasons Amish don't drive cars yet they have electricity and batteries and all that, contrary to what popular belief is, because they believe everyone needs to be home for dinner every night because they need the connection with the food, they need the connection with their family, and they need to be grounded morally and ethically around that community every day. So, just so we give an idea of perspective, I don't have it exactly right because I'm not Amish, but I will give you the idea of why when people can't figure it out, it doesn't make any logical sense. Why not just drive a car? Well, it has to do with that community, that being around food, that being one with the food. It's not that they don't eat chips or processed food or whatever. That's not what happens. But what happens is the community that comes home every night because they're not driving, because they're on horse and buggy, they can't get very far from home. It ensures the ability to be
Mm.
home.
That's really
So,
interesting. That's really
yeah.
interesting.
So,
You see how healthy, like, no joke, we were in Florida recently and there was an Amish family there.
hmm,
And I was like, they're the most, their skin is amazing. Their hair is amazing. They're healthy. They're vibrant. I mean, even there was like an 80-year-old's mom and dad. They were at the beach with their outfits and even they looked vibrant. You're
yeah,
like, how old are they? Like
yeah.
we've got like 4 generations of this family at this vacation rental, and they look really healthy. And I'm sure it's because they're not eating, trash every day.
Yeah, I mean, a little more sensible maybe. But I think the thing is what we talked about is back to the cookbook, back to a full circle, which is why cookbooks are necessary and why individuals like you constantly creating, constantly introducing, and finding a way to introduce it to everyone, I think is important because it is our family. It does help us fall in love with food again. And I hate to say this, but I think it's true, male or female. If you want to start reconnecting with your family, or your family has connectivity, or you're wanting bonding or whatever, the first place to start is food. And it doesn't necessarily, maybe they don't want to go out, maybe it's whatever, and it's going to take time. But if you start cooking at home and you start putting the smell into your house and the energy into your house and the things like that, it does do a lot of healing, or allow a lot of healing conversations to happen in homes that are struggling
I
as
do.
well.
And that's why I was bringing up the conversation about how do I get young kids cooking?
Yeah.
They don't have a home ec or anything at school anymore. I didn't have home ec when we were growing up. But one of the things that I think is really important is if you can make a kid like something, you know, I had a girlfriend, I think I probably met her as a teenager, but she had been cooking for her entire family since 14 because her mother got home later. So she would come home from school, make the family's meal. They would sit down and have a meal together, and then she would go out. So one of the things that I thought was so interesting was when we became friends, she was like, yeah, what do you mean you don't have a place to go for dinner? And it's like, I have multiple jobs. Like, it's not a thing, but they always used to make me at least one day a week go and eat with them. And it was so nice to sit down. But the point about that is if we teach our children to do it, it doesn't have to become another thing we have to do for them. We don't have to be a short order cook for our children. Our children can learn to cook and then they can contribute back into the family, actually pretty young. I mean, yeah, you don't want them doing some crazy stuff with knives unless some kids actually, I know little boys love knives. Teach them not to stab themselves by 14. You can have a kid cooking with a knife in there.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to bring that back in. I remember when I was growing up, my mother didn't want to cook. And I was also trying to constantly be thin. So I was making salads at my house. That was the only thing. Like, I didn't use the stove or anything, but I would make salads because I was always disappointed at the salads out because they were lettuce, tomato, a cucumber, and a couple of carrots. And I like my carrots shredded because I like to get them on the fork. I always hated like big wedges of big
Yeah.
slices of carrots, and you'd have your plastic fork at the store trying to stab a
They're
carrot.
breaking it. Yeah.
So, and I would put everything in my salads. Like, my salads have red cabbage, they have radishes, whatever I can throw in there. You joke that it doesn't even fit in a bowl because there's so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
In a big bowl. But if I had been encouraged and learned to cook earlier, I might have not had the struggle I had with food and weight that I did. Trying to be thin on a 1,200 calorie McDonald's Big Mac food, I could have eaten way more food that was way healthier for me and managed my weight better and had a better relationship with food too. And we can teach our children to be healthier and have better relationships with their bodies and food.
Yeah, I agree with that. Go on.
Yeah. So I think because I was raised differently, and now every time something happens with my health, I've always gone back into the kitchen to fix it. I had been diagnosed with psoriasis, which was an autoimmune issue. The doctors at the time that I was diagnosed were like, well, they didn't even know it was autoimmune at the time. It was 30 years ago. But I went to a nutritionist and I fixed my psoriasis. I had a heart problem. I went back to a Mediterranean diet. I fixed my heart problem. I did have to stop alcohol for my heart problem to go away fully. But like we we are the cure as well. We are the problem and we are the cure.
Yeah, and I often food it was put here for a reason. I just we're meant to consume. Weren't just created. We're not solar power. We're not plant based. We don't and by that I mean we don't turn energy of the sun, or we don't suck up energy from the ground and turn it into food or nutrition, or water. We have to actually physically consume it, eat it, pick it, find it. It just doesn't happen unless we put in an effort. We have to put in an effort, even if it's going to the store and buying it. We have to somewhat put in an effort.
And
And
enough effort. Like we do things that are way more effortful.
yeah, 100% than food. Oh, and how many things that we do just that are pointless for no reason that if we really thought about, we'd be like, oh, why am I doing this every day?
Yeah.
Where is it getting me? Where's the trajectory of this going? Um, But I think from the food thing, I agree. I think the earlier we can teach our children to enjoy food or enjoy family meals or family time or going out to eat and experiencing and exposing them to different food, both in our home and outside of our home, I do think that that's an important part of growing humans in the future. I think we have a lot of pressure to produce things. We've seen a lot of things like pl- uh, technology based production of food when it becomes plant based or other things and trying to replacement. And the reality is, while all those things will still exist, the gravity's not there because you can't get a machine to put in the same energy as a human. And you can't get a machine to create something with the same energy that the ground or the earth or the water that was already put here that naturally produces it. There is no hack, there's only lesser. Okay, so that's the thing, and I'm not saying you shouldn't eat it, and I'm telling people how to eat, but what I am saying is if we really look at it as a full nutritional based thing, the consumption of it is more than just the food. It's how the food was handled. It's how everything was done. And I eat everything. Don't get me wrong, guys. I eat bugs. I try everything. I'm that person because I believe in experiencing life and exposing myself to it. And my dad was in airline catering all over the world. So he had this thing when we would travel when I was pretty young that I just needed to shut up and eat it and we could talk about it later. So, you know, so
I'm glad he wasn't
um
my dad. I don't wanna eat snails when I was younger. It would have been a texture thing.
Yeah, no, snails I don't mind actually that texture, but yes, no, I get what you're saying. There were certain things that I would sort of scoot around a plate or figured my way around peas or ways to
Mhm.
change the texture or push off the coating a little bit or whatever
Mhm.
I could do to do it. But from the audience and from your standpoint, um, I really enjoyed today. I think we talked about a lot of important things, about a lot of bringing our families together, why cookbooks are important for sure, and why what you're doing is important, not only from building a business and you helped all these people. Think about the jobs that were just um I wouldn't say created, but further nourished by you creating that book, not just you. And I just want to emphasize that for the audience. When we do things that we love and we don't give up and we stay on it, business, food, books, there's something that always good will come from it if we stay true to what the purpose and what we believe it is. When we compromise those things is where we get lost for sure. So with that being said, is there anything you want to share with the audience or anything we didn't talk about today that you would like to share?
Um, I wanna thank you for your time. I wanna thank you for having me on the show. I was really excited for this conversation because I was thinking about how I'm coming into it, not necessarily like as a restaurant, but
Yeah.
the business of it. So I was really excited to have this conversation. So thank you. I want to thank your listeners for staying with us. And I do want to say, if you can bring kids into it, you can make your life easier because you might have a kid who's better at it than you. You know, get them the little cookie. Start with cookies. Kids love cookies. Get them, don't make them cook peas right away. But you can get them into the process. They can also maybe get into gardening or various things. But I want to also say that if you have the desire to do something, the worst thing you can do is do it poorly, right? But you can learn from that and then maybe you can get better. But this, as hard as this has been, it has lit me up along the way and given me something to do creatively that I really love. And I'm excited to have done it. And
Yeah.
it
And I,
was made in the United States. So everyone kept saying, you're spending so much money. Even my printing will be done in the United States. And it's not that I don't believe that India or China or some other place should have jobs. I just feel like for me as a real estate person who helped businesses locally and in my radio show, I help local businesses. It was very important for me to keep it all in the United States as well, even though it made a more expensive product at the end of the day.
yeah, I like it. And I, in my head, I'm thinking about like little Lisa's cookbook, all the recipes I wish I knew when I was you or whatever type thing, because I think that there is a lot there to your story about you didn't have the tools necessarily. You gain them later in life. But now sometimes when we don't gain things when we're younger, we're meant to go gift it to a younger generation so they have it. And I think you're extremely talented. And I just want to say this for the audience. I interview a lot of people. Obviously, people reach out to me a lot. I People want to do business, people talk about. But one of the things that is rare that I find, and one of the ways that I sort of what I'll call sift my time, meaning I don't have time for everyone. And I also need to grow my family and have a legacy and make sure I pay the bills. And so I have to be careful with who I spend my time with necessarily or what I spend my time. One of the things that I love about you and what I saw about you was the consistency to get something done against all odds. There's every other person, the odds are stacked against you. You're not a chef. You didn't grow up with food. You don't come from a food background. You're from real estate. You're from whatever. You don't have a food truck. You've never been in a competition. You've never written a book. And I'm not saying that because I'm putting you down, but because I know what it's like to have those same voices at me or even internally for that matter. And when a human can break themselves into pieces somewhat on purpose, one, it means they've had experience being broken to pieces from before, maybe in rebuilding themselves in some way. Maybe your experience as a kid with your weight, I'm not sure. But in this case, it allowed you to break yourself into pieces and take the pieces and rebuild something that's truly amazing, and not as what I'll call simple as the original idea. Through hardship, through complexity, through obstacles, you created something more masterful. And I think that's rare. Most people cannot. And I don't want to categorize, but I will say it for the audience to put pressure on the human, is that if you can't consistently see it through, even through hardship, even when the dream seems dead, and you're the only one pumping life into it, humans that can do that are much. You can learn from them. You can watch them. They can learn from you, and by nature of being around them, iron sharpens iron. So you have that personality. You're doing it with your show. You're inviting other people on there. You're not the gain is not much to you other than you're doing the right thing and helping other people out there story be heard, which is what all we can do. That's the best gift we can give. And so from the audience standpoint, and what I'm getting to is I appreciate your time very much. I learned a lot from you today. I appreciate what you're doing for the world and for families and everyone. And I love your passion. I love your dedication and consistency.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I will say that for your listeners, failure is never the end.
Yeah.
right? And failure always makes the better story. No one wants to ever talk to someone who woke up enlightened under the bonsai tree.
I know. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it.
Go make mistake. Don't
I'm
try.
I'm gonna leave everyone with this because I love this. For everyone to think about. I coached U12, U11 girls soccer this past fall, and I played soccer. I've been involved in soccer, played in Europe as a kid. Just got massively great experience, great. So when I came into this, I came in with the mindset that I'm not going to teach them something that anyone has to unteach them later in life. Because we do a lot of teaching in soccer of things like sweeper formations and stuff like that. That then you get to high school or college or freshman, they're like, no, we're playing a flat back forward. That's just an example to everyone. So it's like, all right, I'm not going to teach them any of that. I'm going to teach them the right way to play. The problem is that even though I was teaching them the right way to play, none of the referees in the league, because they were volunteer, even though they got paid a little bit, were familiar with an offsides trap. Even though I taught them a flat back four, because I didn't want them to have to be untaught a sweeper formation later in life. And so we lost every game, no offsides being called, and we stuck to our guns until we finally got a referee in the last game that called an offsides trap. And it changed the perspective of the game. We won 3-1 versus getting our butt kicked when you can have people cherry picking and not calling offsides. But we did not stop because we were failing by the score. We reframed it that we were, even though we were failing, we were still training and practicing even in a rec league for the better referees the girls would get later in life. We were not adapting to the lower standards of today. And I don't want to say that in a negative way, because I appreciate all the referees and all the coaches and all the volunteers, but there's a difference when you pay more for something than when you're paying less for something and it's volunteer. I'm just saying. So we were playing for the higher level, and failure then, to your point, just needs to be reframed. And often, even though we were losing, we were growing as a team, and we stuck to our guns. So, and now the team's still together. They're loyal. They're all playing. They don't want to leave each other, even if it means leaving rec league, who may not allow them to play together. So, in the end, while the scoreboards may not, or the record may not have shown it, in the long run, I guarantee those group of individual girls will probably do better overall in life in the long run having this experience.
Yeah, because
Um,
no one can teach you. You don't learn anything from winning. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
you learn something from winning,
yeah,
of course.
yeah,
You want winners,
somewhat.
of course.
Yeah, I know.
No, I've learned everything in the losing. I've
Me
like when you
too.
talk about like, oh, put yourself back together. It's because I've lost and things have
Yeah.
failed. And you got to put yourself back together. And life throws those in spades. Got to keep going.
Um,
You know.
yeah. And I will say this: when you meet someone that's gone through the broken, put yourself back together thing, you just know. I don't know how you know, or like an entrepreneur truly knows another entrepreneur who's been through the battle. And probably the military. Wasn't in the military, but I imagine it might be the same. You kind of just know when someone's been through that lifestyle by the way they are and their discipline. And it's the same here. I would say that's. But that person is unstoppable in what they set their mind to, and that person's also realistic. They're not going to go at 45 years old and say, I have a dream of being a basketball star, let me go pursue this. Right. So I
And then
think
whoever's
that
going
there's a
to want to
balance
play
there.
basketball in a pickup league and still enjoy themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Right.
or I enjoy it. I want to start my own league since I'm
Yes.
45 years old and help others do it. So the love can be transferred in many different ways when we find purpose in it, I think. So
Yes. I agree.
where can we find you online? Where can we find the book? Where can we find you on social media? How can individuals reach out to you to find out more about you or learn more from you or set up a signing at their library or their bookstore?
Okay. So every Thursday from 10 to noon, I am on the radio. I'm also on YouTube Live. So you can watch it on YouTube under Lives at Lisa and Robin on the mic. And it's ROBYN. And so all of my handles for social are on that. My publishing company is called Stars at Night Publishing because I'm a Van Gogh fan.
There you
And
go.
so it's starsatnightpublishing.com. The book will be there, but it will be up on Amazon. You will be able to buy it from Target and your bookstores and also your independent bookstores as well. I'm working for that, so you'll be able to find it online. The name of the book is My Love Language is Food. My name is Lisa Parda, if you want to find me. If you want to find me on email, you could always email Lisa and Robin on the mic at gmail.com. And it's LISAANDROBYN on the MIC at gmail.com. And I will respond. And if people want to have events, I think through the radio station is probably the easiest way to connect with me. And I think I really appreciate your time. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed the conversation.
The Van Gogh makes sense. Another a very entrepreneur himself, actually, when people weren't accepting of him, he surrounded himself with a group of people and they created their own way. They didn't follow what was typical or what was supposed to be expected of paintings back then.
Yeah. And to be
They actually took a
acceptable,
very entrepreneurial route as a group. So,
yeah, there were 5 of them, and none of them had any fame while they were alive.
yeah,
But
yeah,
they're the most revered people to this day.
yeah. And I think it's just and some of the most expensive paintings in the world. If you ever try to get your hands on some, it's just wow. Okay, wow. But and the reason I like it, one, because we don't know what our legacy is going to be, but two, if we take a truly entrepreneurial route and we build something, the leadership, the echoing of what we do definitely lasts longer. I think it's definitely a longer impact. People still read Napoleon Hill all the time. It's still a book. Why? The guy did not write one thing generally about himself. He did
Mhm.
it for everyone else. And while everyone else writes books about themselves off of his books, he just wrote about everyone else, what they were doing. He was just curious and no different than what you're doing now. You're on your radio, you're collecting stories, and through that, you understand the human element and are able to put it into food. And I love it. So thank you, Lisa. I grew today. Thank you, everyone in the audience. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening in. Remember to like, share, comment on the episodes. We do this. We volunteer our time. The guests come on here. I do this. This is all volunteer. We cover some of our costs. But other than that, guys, the whole reason we do this is to grow the audience, to grow the entrepreneurs in the world across all the countries that we are in. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And the feedback over the holidays, as we slow down a little bit going into the holidays to prepare for the spring. I appreciate you guys, all the comments, the cheering, the concern. We're not going anywhere. We're just preparing for next spring because spring and summer are our busiest podcast times. And I'll just let everyone know that for some reason, food and summer and getting ready for the summer, entrepreneurs start to panic during the winter and they seek help during the spring and summer. And then they get comfortable after the summer and they seek less help during the fall season, interestingly, because things are going well. And then when the winter comes and everyone panics, we go through this cycle. So, and it literally is, if you watch the podcast, it literally happens. And the amount of people that reach out to me on the podcast for help or wanting to be on the show increases incrementally during December or January, February. So thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. That's me subtly saying you should be learning all year round, not just when you're desperate. So love you guys. I'm out.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.